Hi, friends. This is Dr. Hazel-Grace, and this is the Perfectly Imperfect Relational Repair podcast. And we are in a very special interview today because I'm actually going to be interviewed. And I am here with Sasha, who's going to be interviewing us. And I'm also here with Spencer Jacobson, that we had a really beautiful rupture and a beautiful repair. So we're here to share our process with you. And I would love to hear from both of you of just like what's it like to be here in this. Oh, also, the reason that I'm having Sasha interview us is so that I can actually sit in the seat of the person who is talking about the repair. So Sasha, thank you so
Mm.
much for guiding us. So I don't have to wear two different hats. But I would love to get your voices in the space and just share what's it like to be here right now. And I'll start with you, Sasha.
I am feeling excited and like I'm at the top of a really fun ski run about to dive over the edge.
Awesome. Thank you, Sasha. How about you, Spencer?
I'm feeling like I'm like getting into a swimming pool. I'm like, ooh, yeah, I remember swimming pools. They feel good to be in. And yeah, just feeling the sweetness of the connection with both of you.
And what's the temperature of the water?
It's like when you're like, ooh, it's kind of cold, the water's gonna be cold, but then you get in and you're like, oh yeah, this is nice. I can hang out in here, whatever
Mm,
that temperature is.
okay, that makes sense. I'm feeling like intentionally breathing and grounding myself because there's if you really knew me, there's a lot of intensity that moves through my body often, and it's a mixture of like super excited and also some nervousness. Um, so with that, thank you for sharing how you are. Thank you so much also, Spencer, for being willing to show up and being this really transparent, maybe vulnerable conversation. And I really want to lift both of us up for being leaders who are willing to be like, hey, we're perfectly imperfect too. So I think with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Sasha.
Excellent. Thank you. I think a really juicy, fun way to start is to actually ask each of you to introduce the other person using some fun prompts that you invented, HG. And would you mind kicking that off?
Sure. Um, Yeah, so this is Spencer. And something that I am inspired by you, Spencer, is you choose to go big and
Hmm.
go big with some edgy community experiences. And um, I see you as being like radically committed to learning and I felt really inspired when you reached out to me to have this repair conversation and how you showed up. And we'll get into it more, but I really do admire you for the boldness that you carry as a leader.
Hmm. Thank you. Should I follow that? Yeah. Will you introduce HG?
Sure.
Dr. HG. PhD.
Um,
Yeah, which one do I want? I want something I appreciate about Dr. HG is I feel like the way that you have been so I feel like devotedly studying this world of like liberatory, non-traditional spaces for humans to just have more room to exist outside of the boxes that we have inherited. But like in particular, it's like pursuing a doctorate. Like I think that you are legitimizing and just creating this space even more than many other people, just by how much I feel like you're kind of looking at it as this like science and art form.
at the same time. Just think it creates more legitimacy for us freaks out here on the edge.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And I say freaks with all the love and
All the love.
admiration.
All the
Yeah.
love. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Spencer.
Mhm. And for those that are listening later, first of all, we're very glad that you're listening and watching. So thank you for your time, your engagement. And I'll say if we were going to do like the 90-minute, 2-hour version of this, I would have asked you both, what's it like to hear that from each other? So bonus episodes in the imaginary parallel world. And we had just really, I think, juicy things to talk about today. So I chose not to ask that so we can dive in a little more. But at this threshold in the conversation, let me go to you, if I can, Spencer, and just say what had you say yes to this conversation today about your journey together as friends and colleagues?
I like to follow aliveness, and I felt a lot of aliveness from our repair conversation. And it also just reconnected me to Dr. HG and I like there is a current there. There is I think just inspiration. And so that usually guides how I try to make my decisions. It was just like, oh, I think that'll be fun.
Nice.
This is fun for you. It is for you.
In a kinky way.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, HG, what had you say yes to this?
I have such a commitment to walk my talk. And I want to support people to normalize big conflicts and also show them what one way can look like
Mm,
when repair is done in a good way.
mm,
And also, I think the one of the biggest things is like the amount of intense not trusting I had with Spencer for for 4 years. And
mm,
now the level of like yes and trust is it's so like it seems miraculous and like
mm,
so beautiful that I want other people to get to witness in this
Mm.
and hopefully, take some gems and apply it to their own lives and their own relationships.
mm, mm. Feels so juicy. Thank you. Thank
Hmm.
you. Um, I am excited to dive in. Can we kind of set the scene of, where do you want to start in time? Give us a like, where does this story begin?
Do you want to start, Spencer, or you want me to?
You go for it.
Okay. Well, one dusty day in 2019, Spencer and I happened to be at the same Burning Man camp, Naked Heart, and I was so happy to meet Spencer because that camp was missing really like men who were showing up. And it was
Mm.
just like it was memorable, it was palpable, and like you said, there's like deep resonance and chemistry and power here between us. So that's where our friendship began, and it was kind of one of these like really high peaks. And then I moved, and it kind of like fizzled out. And so it wasn't a long, depthful. It was just like this like really intense moment of connection, and then our lives just went in the ways that it went. And Spencer and I are both big leaders in communities across the nation in very similar field. And so I feel like a lot of our relationship was actually like from a distance.
Mm.
Mm.
So that's kind of like the history of our relationship. Is there anything else you want to add to what I've shared so far, Spencer?
Is nothing like meeting somebody at Burning Man.
Build Week, actually, more specifically.
Yeah, yeah. Build
Build Week
week.
at Burning Man.
Oh,
Right.
funny.
Yeah.
That's a whole context. That's important. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then 2022, summer 2022 in Colorado, I went out there. I live in California now, and I was invited to this gathering of about 50 people. We did pay, so it was kind of like this weird, like it wasn't professional and it was personal to me, so it was kind of like this interesting kind of like zone where it was like friends, but also I was paying, so it felt like a professional kind of retreat. And Spencer was one of the leaders of it. And it pretty early on, I recognized it was a stretch for me to be there because this is a community that I'm not super integrated with. I didn't know a lot of people. I didn't have any like person with me. And there were some themes, and we'll get into maybe some of the more specifics, but there were a couple of themes where I had the experience of not feeling the sense of like belonging and safety, and particularly around the topics of Indigenous justice and gender inclusion and even some topics of their not from me, but some topics of there being some conversations about inclusion around race. And so there were these like themes, and all of those things are really important to me.
Mm.
And I wasn't feeling like those things were being tended to or tracked. And so I was just really outside my comfort zone
Mm.
and pretty dysregulated. And yeah, I think I'll pause there and kind of like ping pong it to Spencer and have you kind of share some of the pieces.
Yeah. Yeah. So summer 2022, my dear friend Allie Katz and I were just feeling like there's all these people that we love that are incredible, but like, where is the context to just like actually go deeper together? Where's the context to just explore group emergence, explore eros and intimacy together, in a way, do the work, do some shadow work together? Um, and so we decided to host at this place called Bayul in well, outside Aspen. And this place is wildly expensive. So, in addition to Allie funding a lot, we also asked people to contribute some money so it could come together. Of yeah, friends and loved ones, and it was also interesting to. This was one of the most hard to contextualize containers that I've ever been in that like Allie asked Attila and I, who were founding Dance Meets Tantra at the time, to facilitate. She was like, "Hey, will you guys facilitate um, and support this?" And at the same time, a really interesting, delicate way to like have 50 people who are then there. Everybody's there for different reasons, of their own reasons. Their own why for coming is very different. And then to like set an agreement field and, you know, what are we doing here together? And um, you know, it's interesting. Even I was trying to distribute the container setting voices, asking different people to bring in the um, the land recognition and recognizing the traditional custodians of the land. And there's just so many pieces that did not happen the way I wanted it to. Um, which is also just an interesting part of trying to make this community gathering. So that's the context. 50 people, all there for kind of their own different reasons, but
Mm,
us wanting to create an experience that isn't just like people skimming along the surface
mm,
of a get together somewhere in the
mm,
mountains,
mm,
or just another party at somebody's house in
mm,
in town where maybe a bunch of people take medicine and then we're kind of like not really super connected to why we're there together. So that was kind of my context.
mm.
Hmm.
Thank you. So there's a chapter in this story of the after that. And so do either of you want to say, like, there was a gap in there, wasn't there, where you didn't have a lot of communication for a while? You tell us. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can share what I remember.
Great.
I remember reaching out to at some point reaching out to Spencer and Attila, the other leader, and saying like I would love a follow-up because there was we'll tell you soon, but I had a big expression at one of the circles.
Mm,
And just had a really hard time and and then I didn't get a follow-up from either one of them. And then at that point, I had just made a decision. I don't trust Spencer and
mm,
I don't want anything to do with Spencer. And kind of
mm,
like fuck Spencer. Like I'm a no kind of thing.
mm,
Um, and so 4 years went by, and of course, I see Spencer, I hear Spencer. We've seen each other at a couple of festivals, but like not a lot of interactions. And then we saw each other at a party in October in Boulder, and you came up to me and you said like, "Hey, I want to connect." And I was kind of frozen. I remember being like a little shocked and stunned, and then you reached out on WhatsApp a couple months later, so this would have been a couple months ago, and you're like, hey, it seems like something's kind of like off here, or like there's like distance. And I was like, that is correct. That is accurate. You're feeling that because that's true. And you had expressed the desire to have a repair conversation. And I was like, all about it. I was so stoked and really grateful that you had reached out. And then we had two different repair conversations, and it was so amazing. Like
Mm,
so powerful and like the thing that I'm amazed at more than anything, and it was like I felt like I was so in my justice and my rightness of like what I did was like right and okay and like from my perspective. And then when I got Spencer's world and reality around all the things that I didn't know, I was like, whoa, of course you did exactly what you did. And simultaneously trying to have compassion and um compassion for myself for like saying like, oh, of course I did what I did too. um so that's kind of like the what happened
hmm
since. Yeah, anything you want to add, Spencer, to that piece?
Well, something I find really interesting is that I actually have far less memory of the facts than I did before the repair conversation. It was like the repair conversation, like it like completed some like polarity circuit, and then my brain's like, okay, we don't need to like store unnecessary information anymore, which is interesting. But I just remember from that time, Hazel-Grace was having a hard time, I think, with dynamics in the container. And I felt like they kind of threw a bomb into the middle of the container in a way that was it didn't feel very self-responsible. And kind of like antagonistic to the thing that was just um, maybe antagonistic to some agreements we had set in the container. Um, And then I think I must have dropped the ball even on just like responding to their request to follow up. And I was going through my own major shitstorms in my life at that time and low capacity and just like I don't know what I was, I don't know what was going on, but I totally dropped the ball on just having this reconnection about after that. Um, and yeah, and then in terms of going into the repair I just, if there's people
Oh,
that I have
actually,
say,
Spencer, can I interrupt you?
yeah.
I have a curiosity. What had you reach out
Yes.
with the text message to say, "Hey, I want to connect. Can we have a conversation?"
Yeah.
Well, it was that you are doing art of repair stuff. And I was I wasn't like super invested in being down on you, but like I was like there was like I had there was some impact for me from the weekend and just being like, damn, like that sucked. And like I felt kind of very missed in the whole thing. And but I was like, okay, they're like giving their life to art of repair. Like I want to give them a chance because they cannot be giving their life to art of repair if they're and then that they're not going to meet me. So I was like, let's just give this a shot to clear something. And my perspective on clearing is it's actually like evolved quite a bit over the course of my life where I don't feel obligated to clear with everybody who has I've ever had breakdowns with because as I've risen in leadership, if I tried to do that with everybody, I would just be doing clearings, for free all day long. Um, but with people where there's like a level of respect or shared community or alignment, knowing that there's an alignment of value, that makes me want to lean in and clear things. Or if somebody's showing up in my field, that's also another sign for me. It's like, oh, like I think we saw each other a couple times, or Sasha had mentioned your name a couple times, even in much more rapid order than you had been in my field for a while. So I also
Mm,
try to listen to that. That had me want to lean in.
Nice.
cool.
Nice. Thanks for that question, Hazel Grace. So then,
Oh yeah, that's where I was going. So I I I fucking love repair conversations because well, I want to talk. I'll share what happened, but also my philosophy on them is I'm like, this is a really great opportunity to just get out of my story. So even though ideally in repair, I'm like, wow, it'll be really nice if we can feel met and like shared responsibility and I can really feel gotten in my world. At minimum, I'm like, well, this is a cool opportunity to get out of my world, get into somebody else's world. And I find that the only way to like fully do that is actually in the act of a really good repair conversation and like mirroring back to someone what they're saying. And so that's something that I really just loved the opportunity to do was like, wow, let me just get into Hazel Grace's world about what was going on. And then all of a sudden, as I do that, it's magical because I'm like, oh yeah, I like totally can see, even without their seeing my perspective yet, I can totally get over there and just be like, wow, okay, this makes so much more sense. Like this is just where they're coming from and their experience. But what was most delightful was actually really feeling I just felt such a sincere um empathy with the impact that that you had on me, and I was just like so touched by that. And also not just the empathy but also just the ability like wow, see from this other perspective that for me just like made a full circle to like wow, I really respect this person. Like we're going to have breakdowns, we're going to get hooked into our stuff, but if you can be someone who can get out of your own story enough to like really understand somebody else, like I have a lot of respect for that, especially with something that can be a intense breakdown or like a lot of emotional charge.
Mm, mm, thank you. Yeah, HG, what's happening for you right now?
I think like the celebration and the power of the mutuality that we both had, that we were both so stuck in these like assumptions or stories or hurt about the other person. And for us to both mutually, as Spencer so eloquently said, like put down our own story and like really get over there and be like, what was that like? Like, really, what was that like for you? And then for both of us to equally take accountability and responsibility and to say, like, this is what we would have done differently and have like deep empathy for the other person. That's what's coming up for me of just like it, and it doesn't always go like that, right?
Mm,
Mhm.
Um, and so I guess I just want to like highlight and celebrate the potency and the power of when it does, and it did in this case.
mm. And Hazel Grace, you referred to this, but I'm really curious. So if you're open to say more of like a before and after, because I think what you said a little bit ago is the idea of like, I'm right and I'm going in there and I have this care and commitment that I have, and what was if that was some of the before and you referred after of like, oh my gosh, now I want to collaborate and I feel so much trust in Spencer. Do you want to say anything else about like the perspective or feelings before and the perspective or feelings after?
Well, I love the question, and I want to be a good follow, but I notice the where I feel drawn to
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
He's kind of talking a little bit more about the specifics of the event and the stories that I had created,
Beautiful.
which
Mm.
I think will support the before and the
Beautiful.
after.
Love
Um,
that. Awesome.
so I kind of prefaced a few things about how challenging it was for me to be at that particular retreat. And I didn't have the information in the context of what was happening on the leadership team and the context setting until 4 years later. So,
Mm,
um, so there were like a series of things where that happened over the weekend. Like I said at the beginning, land acknowledgments are really important to me, and the land acknowledgement was really I got really triggered by it. And I actually did stand up and I'm like, can I add something to this? And my heart was racing and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be accepted here and welcomed here, and I don't know if people care about this. And so it like took a lot of calories to like
mm,
stand up and say the thing that felt really important to me.
mm,
And I will say I was welcomed. Like I did feel a sense of welcoming of me being like, actually, can I add to that land acknowledgement?
mm,
And I'm also tracking my nervous system 4 years ago and now, and some of that like anger or like intensity has like settled, and I can be more in my grace, which is my ever lasting work to continue to be more and more in my grace and speak up. So that was like a layer. And then there was, I use they, them pronouns. There was, there wasn't like a centering of pronouns. And I kept being called she, and I kept kind of having to speak up for myself. So that was like taking calories.
mm,
And then I had someone else that was um who passes as white. And this is a very, very white space, which I'm actually familiar with very white spaces, but I had this person who was coming to me of saying, like, I'm having a hard time because I'm white passing and this is
mm,
important to me. And I don't know if I want to stay in this community because this is the thing that I keep rubbing up against. And so I was like holding and supporting it felt like I was holding and supporting both myself and also kind of like
Mm,
the inclusion of other people. So I just keep using this word like calories, like it was like, but without a lot of like allies or support in
mm,
this
mm,
field. And I think that the culmination of the major rupture, those were like the things that led up to it. And then when we were doing this like circle format, and I feel embarrassed, and this is the part where I'm like, I don't fully know why I made the choice that I did. But I raised my hand and I said, "May I sit?" So embarrassing. It's okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. Okay, so I'm like, "May I sit in the front?" Because I have a share and I was allowed and I got up there and I the space as I understood it was like everything is welcome, all expressions are welcome, and I was fire. I was like I I don't remember what I said, but it was very, very, very intense, and I was kind of talking about these things and m me not feeling safe and included and belonging and like how much labor this is, and I don't, blah 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 blah. So, um, that is what I did. That is what happened. And that is the part, if I could go backwards in time, if there was one thing I could have done differently, was just to at least just sit in my like participant seat, and share from that place. And you know, I don't know if I would have actually expressed any differently, but I think the biggest thing I got from the repair conversation I had with Spencer is like I could see that Spencer wasn't set up for success to hold all of the complexities
mhm,
as we were saying, and Spencer can share more for that. But I think then when I heard Spencer tell me kind of all like some of the background information,
mm,
I didn't show up in care or support of Spencer as a leader in that moment,
mhm, mhm,
or having the magnitude of my expression that really was a bomb in
mm,
this space.
mm,
Um, so I'm gonna pause because I don't know what else to say right now, but that I want to pause there.
mm.
Hmm.
Thank you. Um, just before we go to you, Spencer, I just want to say, Hazel Grace, there was a moment. Are you open for a little impact?
Yeah.
There was a moment when you were relating that and you named some of the content and you went and blah blah blah. And part of me wanted to go like, not blah blah blah. Like this was your care. This was your commitment. And so I just want to dignify. I hear you talk about the bomb and what you might do different. And for me as a listener and also somebody that cares about you and some of the things you care about. And I think like this is what I liked about, Spencer, you said it's good to get into this and to learn from it. And for me, there's just the impulse to sort of dignify what you were fighting for. Even if you might have fought for it a different way, it feels important to me to reflect back the way I feel galvanized towards you saying, hey, I want to feel included, even if my pronouns are not obvious to people, or even if race is not getting attended to. I want us to be able to be that open, that aware, that mutual. So I just wanted to reflect that back and not
Mm,
kind of let that be yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed myself like I'm tearing up because
mm,
even though it was messy and even though my 4 year ago self was less not as evolved as I am now, like I am very proud
Yes.
of the thing that I was standing for and speaking for. And I celebrate that if we were in that circle
mhm,
today, I would still find a way to speak and stand, but I would do it in a way that people could hear me and it wouldn't create such a bomb. And um and I feel like I have some like hesitation saying this, but like
Mm.
there was a power and a strength that was coming through. In a way, I almost felt like disassociated
Mm.
um, when I was doing it, and it felt like my ancestors were there, of like giving me the strength and the power, and I just get to keep learning from my ancestors of how to have that power and have that strength and speak up and do it in a way that actually creates more connection versus disconnection. And that's my learning edge.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm.
Hi, Spencer. Hi.
Sasha.
What's present for you in this moment? Or you can go back into the,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
that
no, it's mainly what I'm present to is like the absolute complexity of the moment. It just in terms of if I were gonna like write a Harvard Business School case study on facilitation and like complex dynamics, I would choose that retreat we were on, just in terms of like all the layering needed to do something that like that anyways, but just kind of the way we were pointed in so many different directions, and then the context needed to be able to hold group shares like that,
Mm.
um, and and be able to work with whatever's coming up. So that's kind of that's a lot of what I'm with. Is just wow, it was a complex situation, and I actually don't necessarily think it's. I think there would be a different podcast about facilitation complexities and what was going on there. But that's all to say. You know, I think it's just um, Hazel-Grace was expressing something important to them in the best way they could at that time. And it also created a situation where I actually felt helpless to meet what was actually coming up in a way that would allow the container to metabolize it.
Mm.
And I'm a very skilled facilitator, and so that's all to say that was quite a situation.
Mm.
Um, and um, so I'm just in appreciation of uh, the scar tissue that I have from that and how it helps me be a better facilitator now.
Mm. Wow.
I'm like, and it's funny because I mean I've done a lot of facilitation now, but I really appreciate the I appreciate the scar tissue and the times when things really break down. Um, in part because I'm like, well, I've been through some shit, and I know that we can really survive a lot and keep moving forward and learn from it. So I just thought that that was um, beautiful and important, and ultimately, I want to create spaces where people can like really stand for what matters for them, you
Mm.
know, and so that's really cool. And just from the repair conversation, what I found most valuable is Hazel-Grace's ability. I mean, you mentioned feeling embarrassed, but like your ability to hold yourself in compassion too for something you would have done differently. Um, to hold yourself in compassion and also really be like, wow, Spencer, I can see from your perspective how that would have been a really impossible situation too. And I actually want to just highlight that in the spirit of repair, how important it is to be able to hold oneself in
Mm.
compassion or in dignity while also being able to, I'll just say this for me, um, I think that apologizing is a really beautiful thing in a repair that doesn't need to be, I'm wrong.
Mm,
It can be, okay, I'm going to hold myself in compassion and dignity enough to be able to be like, wow, I really feel sorry. I feel sorrow that I contributed at least to that impact that
mm,
happened.
mm,
And I just want to highlight that I find that when people have too much shame to be able to hold themselves in dignity and compassion for things that there might be like, actually, I kind of wish I did do that differently. If we have too much shame, we actually also can't land. It's rare to be able to fully land the apology or the
mm,
empathy. And
mm,
I've been really, honestly, in my own way, studying that is like, I have to be able to not lose my own goodness, my own sense of goodness in order to be like, wow, Hazel-Grace, I'm so sorry. I dropped the ball on following up with you or what, I'm like,
mm,
I dropped the ball, you know, my bad,
mm,
period. Like, I don't need to, but if I am gonna lose my sense of goodness, right? If like my sense of goodness is at stake, if I made a mistake or not, or if I, whatever, avoided something, then it's not as available to me to just be like,
mm.
my bad. You know what? Like I missed that, you know. You know what I'm saying? I feel and I felt that you were also able to do that with me, which also has me trust you more as a collaborator, that I'm like, shame is not running this person's life.
Mm,
Honestly, shame is
mm,
not running, and I actually think shame is running a lot of in our culture. I think that that's what's happening basically. So
mm,
that has me and I just had a repair the other day where 97% of the conversation was either them talking or me getting their world. 0% curiosity about my experience. And then I'd say about 3% of them being like, well, I can see how you da da da. So like about 3% self-responsibility. And so I just contrast that with our repair, where I really felt you get in my world and hold yourself in compassion enough to be like, ooh, I do feel a bit embarrassed, but like, that's okay. I can feel embarrassed and empathize, right? That's so
mm.
powerful.
Yeah.
Mm. I love what you just shared, Spencer. I'm sorry doesn't have to mean I'm wrong. So powerful.
Mm,
And and Spencer, when I heard you say, we could do a whole nother podcast on the complexity of the facilitation, and that was poignant of like that would be a great Harvard research study to go back and research that one. But I do want to highlight that is actually a big part of our repair was for me to understand
Hmm.
how was this thing funded? What were you told? What were your responsibilities? And to also acknowledge and name that there was like a lot of cross-cultural um communities that did there wasn't like this cohesive thing and I think it did make it tricky that it was like people were paying a fair amount of money, but it wasn't really like a professional thing, but you were leading it. And so it was in this like gray zone
mm,
that I think was the thing that had me really have empathy and compassion for how I showed up in that moment and just like what 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 you were holding. I guess I just want to say like that the complexity of it does seem like the core piece of it to me for understanding what it was like for you and the impact that I had on you.
Yeah, I was a unpaid, full working facilitator holding um, gender, race, um, indigenous rights, um,
Sexuality, trauma,
sexuality,
shadow work.
trauma, 10 different communities coming together with their own context on what, on what we were supposed to be doing there.
Yeah. Why you were
Um,
there. Yeah.
uh, Challenges with my ex-partner. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Mm,
I think there's something to me that feels really sweet about remembering that everything that may look like a rupture between two people is sitting in a whole set of nested contexts. And it can be like A and B, oh, A and B, and this thing happened, and can they repair? And like absolutely bow and respect into that. And the world's who's exhausted, who just got bad news, who's reeling from a rupture that just happened before that,
mhm,
and
mhm,
who's in a social context where they get missed over and over and over, and then it looks like this, but like what else?
mhm,
What else is acting on all of us? Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, and I really like the term shared reality. Um, and I'd say I have a couple different levels of like repair that I'm interested in. Sometimes I just want to clear something, or somebody wants to clear something with me, and I'm like, I actually don't need to have a shared reality with this person for whatever reason. Maybe they're a client, maybe they're someone where I am just not that invested, but I'm like, I'm happy to clear. And so that's more like there's a layer of like, okay, let me just fully get their world, right? Like hear
For
their
them.
ex for them. Yeah, it's for them. Let me just fully get their world. I'm going to play it back. I'm going to empathize. I'm going to understand the impact, whatever. I just want to clear the energy that's here. And then there's shared reality. And what I really like about the terminology of shared reality is that in order for it to happen, we have to understand two different experiences coming together
Mhm.
enough to be like, okay, based on this data, this like irrefutable data, these facts, somebody had this experience and these emotions and even these triggers based
Mhm.
on their likely early childhood life. And then I had my own experience and emotions and stories and triggers related to the same set of facts. And if we can both do that, now we're like, oh, there's now a reality that we are actually sharing versus like, no, this is what happened. No, that like,
Mhm.
that's what happened. This is really what happened. You really didn't get this.
Mhm.
And I just like that context of shared reality. But what it takes is, I think, being able to inhabit somebody else's um, story for a while.
Mhm.
Yeah, can I jump in and say something about
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
So in the repair process, the fourth step is called acknowledge, which is like, let's acknowledge what happened. And the goal is to get to shared reality, which is what you talked about.
Mm,
And something I recently have been saying, which dovetails on what you were talking about not being wrong and dignity and um, protecting one's goodness, because sometimes I think what it takes to get to shared reality is a version of an ego death. Because
Mhm.
it's like, in
hmm
order for me to believe and get your reality, there's a fear that if I get and believe your reality, that means my reality is invalid. And if my reality is invalid, that might mean that I'm not good in some way. And if I'm not good, then da 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 da, so forth. So, yes, shared reality is the goal of the acknowledge step, and it is a doozy, and it's hard because it's confronting. Um,
Mhm.
it's a powerful thing to disconnect. Just because I believe and understand your reality doesn't mean that invalidates my reality. And that's some of the deepest work sometimes with repair that not everyone is ready for or capable of yet.
Mm.
Yeah, nothing. I don't think that there's anything that can grow your consciousness and capacity more than like getting into a doozy of a repair and being able to inhabit a reality that like really confronts your own. And that exactly, it's like you don't need to eat 5 grams of mushrooms to uh have an ego death. Like you can just repair with that person where your ego's like, no, it really did not happen that way. It did not. um and I think that's it's actually really beautiful. And I actually credit conversations like the ones we had with so much of my development, and actually really people who cared about me a lot enough in earlier times in my life who actually were willing to stop and be like, dude, like, let me show you what it looks like to get into your reality. I'm going to do that right now.
Mm.
And then just doing it and be like, oh, wow, like, okay, that's what that is. But I think that addition of, yeah, there's an ego death there absolutely can be, especially if they're saying something that your mind is like, that absolutely did not happen.
Totally. Hmm.
And right. And then enough sense of embodied safety not to have that like totally shake your world that you're then going to be somehow unsafe because, and I know then there's complexity in relationships, but
Hmm.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
There's
Mhm.
something I feel is present in this moment, listening to you both, witnessing you both, that Hazel Grace, I might ask you to speak to, and it's a quality of things that having been repaired after breakage are even more beautiful, more meaningful, more strong. And I can still remember the first time that you shared this distinction with me that comes from Japanese culture of kintsugi. And would you
Mhm.
be willing to just say a little, because to me, I feel like it's really present.
Yeah. So I got this distinction from one of my great teachers, Tara Anderson, and the concept of kintsugi, which is a Japanese art form that takes broken ceramics and puts it back together with gold, and it makes it more beautiful and stronger than it was before it broke. And that is how I feel about the power of repair and what I often ask my guests on this podcast at the end of is like what are the gifts? What are we receiving because we went through this rupture?
Mm.
And I'll ask myself, I'll go first. Um I was like deeply sad by how distance and upset and like not trusting of Spencer for 4 years. And like even his stuff would come up on Facebook and it would be a visceral experience in my body, or I would sometimes like see him and I was just like it took up space and
Mm.
energy. And to know that I have the capacity and the willingness to show up in this repair and to be met with Spencer is um it feels like a testament of what's possible. And I was
Mm.
shocked by the end of our second repair conversation. I remember I'm like, I don't even know how I'm saying this right now, but I was like, I know this might sound kind of bananas, but like maybe we could collaborate. Like it was a very quick turnaround. And I will say that a month after I said that, you messaged me. Spencer was like, "Hey, I'm doing a festival. Do you want to come teach?" And I was like, "Yeah." So that is coming up, and I'm going to be facilitating at a festival, Revel Festival in Colorado that Spencer is leading. So the speed and also I just want to say too, like there is a speed to it, like there was a
Mhm.
quickness to it,
Mhm.
but I trust the groundedness in it. I trust the
Yeah.
sustainability. I trust the maturity in it, where maybe I don't always trust that in the past. And the part that I trust is, and Spencer said this earlier, I believe this will not be the first time that Spencer and I have ruffle each other, and
Yeah.
that excites me. And
Mm.
there are still times where Spencer says stuff on Facebook that I'm like, really, really, bro, like really. But now I feel desirous enough and safe enough to actually have a conversation. And so what I trust, part of me does trust that this won't probably be our first rupture or only rupture, but I trust more than anything is our ability to meet each other and to get to the other side and be better humans because of it.
Mm.
Hmm. Yeah, and what I mean, what I love about it is I actually well, I only want to deeply relate with people who I can repair
Mm.
hard shit with. And actually, it's one of the biggest points of evidence for me of relationships that I do want to deepen is have we, have we been able to have really good repair? And as far as the collaboration goes, it's actually perfect because what I've I mean, the theme of reconciliation between the genders and the ways we were socialized in our sexuality has been just important to me for a long time, and it's coming back around again. And so that felt like, oh, I really want to anchor this at Revel. Hazel-Grace feels like this awesome person to bring this, and I'm like, and should we facilitate that together? And what feels awesome about that is like, well, we just did it in a way, right? We just did it.
Mhm.
And so that is even more like, wow, there's actually even like integrity, deeper integrity in offering that workshop because we're living it rather
Mm.
than like the idea of like, well, I like this stuff and you like that stuff and we like it together, so let's go do it. Um,
Mm.
So I just think it also allows me to just, when I'm able to have a repair, in this instance with Hazel-Grace, I just honestly have a lot more respect for myself
Mm.
too.
Ooh.
I'm like, I'm that dude that can just meet it, and I think in the spaces that the three of us play in, shit can go down, right? Things can get hard.
Yep.
Big energies move.
Yep.
And I, one of the reasons I trust myself to lead is I am like, am here to meet. I'm not always going to meet it perfectly in the moment for sure, but I trust myself to come back because
Mm.
because I have evidence that
Mm.
I do and I will and I can. So,
Mm.
um, yeah,
Mm.
just grateful to have that opportunity.
Mm. If you are watching and listening to this, just let yourself connect with yourself here. Just see how this conversation is touching you. And let yourself have space and attention for whatever's happening for you. Mm.
I I really want to tell this really quick story as a way to like round it out.
Righteous.
I was running, facilitating, producing this intimacy retreat many years ago in Colorado, and the Art of Repair was 3 months old, and this was the first group that I ever taught the Art of Repair. It was fresh, hot off the channel from the oak tree, and I taught it like on a Friday, and the next day was the biggest rupture I had ever had as a leader in
Mm,
my field. And I was so terrified because I was like, people are never going to trust me. I need to quit. I was being dramatic and blowing it out of proportion because it was just really scary. And so I was like, well, this is useful. They know the repair process. Let me do the repair process with the group as the leader. And I even screwed up the repair process as I was doing the repair process.
Uh,
And I had several people come up to me and they said, that was so cathartic. I have never seen a leader stand in front of a group actively in the moment and take full accountability and responsibility and do a repair process with me. And somehow it goes back to why did I say yes to do this conversation is because I think what's missing in a lot of leadership is what Spencer and I just did of like we're imperfect. Here are our flaws
mm,
and look at our gold that we just created from the broken pieces that we
mm.
put back together. Um so um Sasha, thank you so much. So skilled, so talented. What a delight to get to sit in this seat and be held and guided by you. And Spencer, thank you for your generosity and um, yeah, just showing up in the way that you have and are. And I'm stoked about collaborating with you at this festival that's coming up. Fireworks.
Ugh.
Anything
mm.
else as we say goodbye to this conversation?
Sasha,
I want to acknowledge you, Hazel Grace, for the years of self-cultivation and making mistakes and learning and taking risks and having fun. And to me, today it's the three of us sitting here, but I can almost feel someone who will get something from this that will really touch their life. And what I'm present to is that didn't start an hour ago. You have worked for a very long time to have a
hmm
community of people who go, "Oh, Hazel Grace made a podcast. Let me listen to that."
Mm,
So I acknowledge your years on path.
thank you.
yeah. Yeah, I want to thank you, Hazel Grace, for opening, the beautiful opening, and I want to say to anybody that's made it this far in the listening, just such a strong encouragement to go lean into a repair with somebody that matters. And if you've discounted how much they matter to you to protect yourself from the pain of being disconnected, then could be a good moment to acknowledge that. And I'll just say nothing has impacted my life more than forgiving my parents and having repair conversations with my parents, especially where I wasn't really needing them to get my world so much, but to just lean into wanting to understand them and be curious and to share some things that were hard for me. So just a little plug for repair and going to a hard one if you can.
Mm. Fastest way to create secure attachment in yourself and in your relationship is family of origin. Oh, yeah. Thanks for that encouragement. I echo that. Bless your lives. Thank you both.
And thank you,
Thank
Sasha.
you both. Good to be with you.